The Premier League season is back, and you know what that means. It's Premier League prediction time. Who's getting relegated? Who's finishing in mid-table mediocrity? Will Arsenal get Europe? Will Chelsea win the league? Will City defend their title? Let's find out together. And by find out, I mean just see what I think will happen, because funnily enough, I can't see into the future. It'd be great if I was all prescient, but I'm not. So I can only give a prediction, and we all know my predictions are always 100% accurate. Spoilers, they aren't. But anyway, this is my thoughts on how the table is going to look for next season. And let's start at the bottom, the arse end of the table, as I like to refer it to, as it's Watford. Watford, for me, are finishing rock bottom of the Premier League. That might sound a bit harsh. They weren't too bad when they were in the Premier League a couple of years ago. Could say they got a little bit unlucky. They've also got a bit of a mental owner who just consistently sacks managers. It wasn't that long ago when they were in the FA Cup final against Man City, but then they got pounded by Man City in that FA Cup final, and it's basically not been smooth sailing since. I must admit, I don't personally watch the Championship, so maybe this is me being a bit harsh, but they haven't really made any key defining signings that I'm aware of anyway. Just ahead of Watford, quite a boring one. It's another newly promoted side. It's Norwich City. They do have Timo Pukki up front. The Finnish striker did have a very good early start to his first season in the Premier League a few years ago when Norwich came up, but he dropped off a little bit. Just ahead of Norwich again. I do think it is going to be very tight here, by the way. Maybe the bottom 5 teams, I think, will be in the primary relegation battle throughout the season. And I haven't got Brentford to go down. I've got Southampton to go down. Now, this is the first potentially interesting one, potentially controversial one. Danny Ings, key source of goals, has gone to Aston Villa. They've sold him. As far as I'm aware, they haven't actually reinvested that money into properly replacing Danny Ings. It's looking more and more likely they're going to lose Vestergaard, who I think was their Van Dijk replacement. They've gone back to their old ways of selling key players. The Ings to Aston Villa just sort of happened out of nowhere. Goals are gold in the Premier League. The hardest thing to do in football is to sscore goals. They have actually replaced Danny Ings. Adam Armstrong, now I think it was like FIFA 16 career mode or something. He did go on to be quite a good player for me in career mode. So yes, he's a striker. Is he as good as Danny Ings? No, he's been in the Championship for all of his career as far as I'm aware, just surviving relegation. This is me probably being a little bit optimistic, but I've got Brentford, the final newly promoted side. I've been reliably informed by people who watch the Championship that Brentford are going to finish rock bottom and that they are basically a Championship quality side with a good striker. I like the idea of Brentford. I like the fact that it's their first ever time in the Premier League. Goals are gold. They have a goal scorer. Everyone's saying that Tony is Premier League quality. Next, I've gone for Palace. A lot of people have got them down for relegation because they have lost Roy Hodgson. He may not be the most attacking, exciting manager, but he did a good job for Palace. And Patrick Vieira has come in. And this will be incredibly interesting to see Vieira in a managerial position in the Premier League. They do have that Wilfred Zaha factor. They do have that Iberi Eze factor. Burnley's Burnley. They're going to survive. Sean Dyche is going to lead them to another year of stable football. They haven't done much transfer business. They sold a centre-half. They bought a centre-half. Next, I've got Newcastle. Now, Newcastle were one of those clubs last season where they were always threatening relegation, but then sort of towards like the last third of the season, Steve Bruce half got his act together and Newcastle were able to put a good number of results in. They've done no transfer business, but what do you expect? It's Newcastle, it's Mike Ashley. Next, I've got Wolves, and Wolves haven't done too much transfer activity either. They've sold their goalkeeper, Portuguese goalkeeper, and to replace him, they've bought another Portuguese goalkeeper, the Olympiacos goalkeeper, but they've lost Nuno, their manager. Literally, who's their manager? Bruno Lage. Who? I just think they're going to have a very average season. I think it might take the new manager at least a season just to find his feet in the Premier League. Might take a while for Jimenez to get back to full fitness. Coming in next, I've got Brighton. A lot of people have advertised Brighton as relegation fodder because they just can't put the ball in the back of the net. They are the XG merchants. I do really like Brighton. I admire the way they play. I really like Graham Potter as a manager. I do think that he is a future commercial six manager. They've sold Ben White to Arsenal. They've got a big fat fee for him. They've broken their record transfer fee. They've signed someone from Salzburg. I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew much about this guy, but he's a central midfielder from Zambia, young. A lot of good players have come from Salzburg and the RB system. You know, Haaland springs to mind. I've got Leeds next, just at the top of the lower end of the table in 11th place. Got them to finish a couple places below what they finished last season. I don't think there'll be a burnout or anything like that by Leeds, but I do think they had a surprisingly good season last season, being a newly promoted side. And whilst I don't think there will be that, you know, second season syndrome where they have a massive drop off in quality and form, I do think there will still be a slight drop off. Nevertheless, the way Bielsa plays football is almost inevitable. Right, we're in the top of the table time. West Ham, I've got to finish in 10th. They had a brilliant season last season, getting Europa League football. I don't think the strength of the squad is good enough to cope with being in the Premier League and genuinely competing in the Europa League at the same time. I don't think they can overachieve 2 years in a row, especially with the Europa League factor. So West Ham 10th. Next, I've got Everton, and I do think they're going to finish one position better than last season, but overall it's going to be a relatively disappointing season. Their transfer window's been fine. They've got rid of a lot of the deadwood. You think Yannick Bolasie was still at the club. For me, Everton do need probably 3 or 4 really good quality signings in order to properly push for Europe, which is where I assume they want to be. I actually do think that Everton's best signing was the manager, Rafa Benitez. I think he's a very good manager, and if he stays at Everton and if he's supported in the transfer window, I think Everton next season after will be genuinely competing for the European places. In 8th place, I've got Arsenal to finish exactly where they finished last season. Ben White, I think, is a very good signing. I think it's a very underrated signing. He's young, he's a ball player, he's English. I think he'll work extremely well with the way Arteta plays football. As with Everton, Arsenal's been able to get rid of some of the deadwood in the form of David Luiz. There is still a lot of deadwood there. Too many weak-minded players at Arsenal. There's quite a bit of quality there, but the mentality for me isn't on. I'm just going to list the positions where I think they need to totally replace pretty much, or at least improve on. Goalkeeper, right back, centre half's probably fine. I think 2 midfielders in the centre, striker and a winger. I'm personally a big fan of Arteta. I think the way he plays football is very good. I just don't think he's been given the tools to play the football he wants to play. Same positions last year. And speaking of same positions last year, Spurs are going to finish 7th again. Now this is assuming Harry Kane stays at Spurs. If Kane forces the exit, I think Spurs will actually finish even lower because he's so crucial to them. There's quite a lot of departures for Spurs and not as many arrivals. So I'm just going to read off who's left Spurs just so we can get an idea of what sort of transfer window they've had. But Foyth is gone, Alderweireld is gone, Joe Hart, Danny Rose, Lamella, Gazaniga, Gareth Bale going back to Real Madrid. They have replaced him with Romero from Atalanta. Atalanta are a very good side in Serie A. They play very interesting football. So I actually didn't realise this. It's only a loan transfer apparently. I'm guessing that it's a loan transfer with an obligation to buy or an option to buy. Otherwise, I don't know why Spurs would do that. But I think that is a good signing. Gil from Sevilla, winger. They're lucky they've got Harry Kane still and Son. Those goals saved Spurs last season. Right, we're in the top 6 now. We are talking Europa League football for position 6 and 5. And coming in 6th, I've got Aston Villa. Yes, they've lost Grealish for a fee of £100 million to Man City. However, I still have faith Villa can get European football. I think it'll be very tight, but I think they can get Europa League. They were very impressive last season. Unfortunately, Grealish for them did get injured towards the last third. He was obviously their main player, their captain, but they've used that Grealish money and they've already, they pre-invested some of it and they've already been spending it wisely, I think. So they've signed Leon Bailey for only less than £30 million, which is mad to me. Danny Ings, we touched on it before. Is that a necessary signing because they've already got Watkins? I'm not sure. I don't know if they're going to play a 2-striker formation or just interchange or whatever. I don't know how it's going to work, but that'd be interesting to see. Danny Ings is a very good striker, and they've got Buendia from Norwich for £35 million. Ashley Young's coming back. He can do a job. Well, he won the Serie A with Inter last season, so he's by no means done, even at the age of 35. And they've also got Tuanzebe on. I didn't even realise they've got Tuanzebe on loan from United. I thought he did a relatively decent job when he came in for United at times. Now, he had a couple of mistakes in him, but unless I'm mistaken, he had a very good showing against PSG, Mbappe, Neymar's PSG. So I think that's a decent loan transfer for Aston Villa. I'm quite excited by those signings. There's some very interesting attacking signings. I think it's good investment. and I'm really excited to see Villa next season. Just missing out on the Champions League. In 5th place, Leicester. I feel so bad saying this because they finished, I think they finished 5th the last 2 seasons in a row, just missing out on the Champions League when they really should have got it. Once again, the top 4 teams that I haven't talked about yet have just strengthened too much for me, or they've just maintained too much for me. I touched on Salzburg being a very interesting side where these great players are developed. Daka being one of them, and he's gone to Leicester. The brief cameo he had at the Euros, he looked like a very impressive, interesting young player. We've also signed a defensive midfielder from Lille. Hopefully that doesn't mean that they're going to be looking to offload Ndidi anytime soon, because he's a fantastic player. Brendan Rodgers is an excellent manager. Vardy's getting on, but he can still do it. Iheanacho's proving that he can do it at this level. They won the Community Shield against City. That's another trophy to their name. Great start. Great way to start the season. And then they'll have another extremely good season, but just missing out on Champions League football. It's the top 4 and it's Champions League football time. Coming in 4th place, Manchester United. You might think it's too low, but I did do a video detailing where I think Manchester United, how Manchester United are going to do this season, and my reasoning for that. So do feel free to go watch that video if that's of interest to you. They've signed Sancho, brilliant. They've signed, it's not official yet, but they have officially, unofficially signed Varane, brilliant. Centre half and a player to occupy that right side of the attack was essential for Manchester United. It was essential they got it right, and I think Sancho is a brilliant signing, and I think he massively improves United, and I think Varane is a brilliant signing and he massively improves United. But for me, where was Manchester United's main problem area? It was in defensive midfield. Your options are Matic, Fred, McTominay. Matic is old and not mobile. Fred, even though he had a good Copa America, has never really proven it on the pitch for me. He's not even like a B-Tech Fernandinho. He's Fred. And McTominay, not only do I think he's not good enough, but he's also not a defensive midfielder by nature. Whenever I see him play, he like operates better when he's further up the pitch in like more of a number 8 role rather than a number 6 back. Pogba was injured for a lot of last season. Still question marks around Pogba. He was shifted off to the left a lot last season. That can't happen. Does he even want to stay at United, or does he want to go to PSG next season? They needed another signing in that defensive midfield area, whether that's Ndidi or a player such as Ndidi, Kante, Goretzka, Barrios, Camavinga, Locatelli, Ruben Neves, whoever. There has to be at least one signing for me to genuinely think they could compete. And even with that, let's say they signed Ndidi, I think they still would only finish 2nd. The other teams have also strengthened. Even though United have increased the quality of their squad, don't think it's good. I don't think it's actually enough. In 3rd place, I've got Liverpool, and I think Liverpool finished the exact same position they finished last season. They were blighted by injuries last season, as were other clubs. It wasn't just Liverpool, but particularly in the centre-half department. Van Dijk, in theory, is back. The big question mark is, will Van Dijk be the same player as he was before that ACL injury? Because that's a massive injury. But Liverpool have sort of addressed that. They've signed Konate from Leipzig. But for me, they needed to do more. They've lost Wijnaldum to PSG. For me, there had to be another central midfielder signing. And there also had to be either a Firmino replacement or a Firmino alternative. Starting 11's very good, obviously. But in terms of the whole squad, we saw last season with injuries, you get 1, 2, 3 injuries, whatever, it's pretty detrimental. So who's going to come in 2nd place, and therefore who's going to win the Premier League next season? Coming in 2nd, I've got European champions Chelsea, and therefore I've got Manchester City to finish as Premier League winners. But let's talk about Chelsea first. They had a very odd season last season. You could almost split it into 2 halves. The Lampard era and then the Tuchel era. Under Lampard, they were very poor, honestly. When City played them, for example, at Stamford Bridge, they got dominated. They got played off the park. They were lucky to get a goal. That game ended 3-1. People were writing them off. People like, this Chelsea side's not got anything about it. Tuchel comes in, not absolutely transforms, but he does basically transform Chelsea's season. They go on, they just about get top 4, they end up playing much better football, and most importantly, they obviously win the Champions League, and they've recently won the Super Cup as well. They have signed Lukaku for a club record fee of £97.5 million from Inter Milan. They've re-signed him. I feel a bit sorry for Werner, because they bought him big money, and in theory he was supposed to lead the line for Chelsea. He's now probably going to be shifted out to the left, or maybe just dropped altogether. In order for me to be convinced Chelsea could win the Premier League, more signings need to be made. I think they play 3 at the back, or 5 at the back, but that means they've got 3 centre-halves. Thiago Silva's very good, but he's 36. Azpilicueta's not getting any younger. And then I don't think Rudiger or Christensen are that good. Honestly, I think the system that Tuchel plays is basically protecting them. I think in terms of individual quality, they aren't really that good. I'd have liked to see Tomori stay at Chelsea, but he's gone on a permanent to AC Milan. Goalkeeper, I still have question marks over both Mendy and Kepa. Well, now you've got Lukaku, but there's also Werner, and there's Havertz, and there's Ziyech, and there's Pulisic. There's so many options there. I still don't actually know what Chelsea's best front 3 is. And the way Chelsea play football, it works very well for the Champions League. There's a big difference between being successful in the Champions League and being successful in the Premier League. When Chelsea won the Champions League, a lot of mainly Chelsea fans mistakenly made the statement, well, we're champions of Europe, therefore we're the best team, in the world. It's not really how it works. You don't have to be the best team to win the Champions League, whereas you do have to be the best team in your country to win the Premier League, because it's a 38 game slog, it's a marathon, whereas in the Champions League, anyone can beat anyone over 90 minutes. Literally anything can happen. On paper, Man City should have won the final because they had the better individual quality, but Chelsea played better on the day and they won the match. But Chelsea finished 4th in the Premier League last season. Do you think there will be an improvement with Tuchel having a full season, with Lukaku coming in? But to genuinely challenge, and we'll talk about Man City in a second, to genuinely challenge, I think at least 1, maybe 2 high quality signings need to be made in order for me to go, beating Man City. But as it stands, I do think Man City are winning the Premier League, and let's talk about them now. Obviously, reigning, defending Premier League champions, more importantly, defending League Cup champions, Champions League finalists last season. Be interesting to see how City perform in the Champions League next season after losing it in the final, getting so close, but at the end of the day, being so far. There is still an issue for me at striker, because Jesus, I don't think, is good enough to lead the line on his own. He's fine as a backup, but Aguero's now gone. And Aguero was also injured for basically all of last season. So City pretty much didn't play with a recognised striker. In an ideal world, that false 9 thing, it's fine or whatever. But in the Community Shield, it was Gundogan, once again, who had the most shots for City. And you can't keep relying on a midfielder to be providing your goals for you. You need a striker. If City get Harry Kane, it's game over. I don't think it's close. Without Harry Kane, it is close. But I do still think Jesus is a good player. Is he of the quality where you want him to play every single game for Man City as you would someone like Aguero or Kane or Haaland? No, but he can still do a job, and he is a very Pep Guardiola player in the way he presses and the way he links up play. So it's not the end of the world. But City have the best midfielder in the world in De Bruyne. Fernandinho is still excellent. City's defence is brilliant. I think Laporte was injured for a lot of last season. I do think he'll get more game time. Diaz was, based on form, the best centre-half in the world last year. Cancelo, based on form, was the best right-back in the world last year. Foden is just going to get better. Mahrez is a brilliant player. Bernardo Silva, if he stays, he might actually go. Maybe that will facilitate a Kane move, but if he stays, he's excellent as well, especially off the bench. Sterling didn't have the best season last season, but he did have a great Euros. And we haven't even talked about Jack Grealish, the new £100 million man. He can play as an 8, he can play on the left, he could even play as a false 9. Be so interesting to see. I thought his cameo in the Community Shield was good. He was the most creative player last season per 90 minutes. More creative than De Bruyne, which is mad to think. And I think that does improve City. Would it have improved City as much as a Harry Kane signing? No, but it does still improve City. And City's squad is the best in the world. And I think over 38 games, it is, particularly unless you're somehow massively lucky and massively injury-free, it's a squad game. Man City have the best squad. Man City have, I still think they probably do have one of, if not the best starting 11s in the Premier League. For me, they've got the best manager in the Premier League. I think that's going to be too much for everyone else, and I do predict Man City to retain their Premier League crown, and that's even without Kane. But guys, those are just my predictions. I obviously can't see the future, that's just what I think is going to happen next season. Let me know if you'd like me to do another video where I give my predictions on, it's hard with cup competition, but let me know if you want me to predict who I think is going to win the leagues in other divisions. I won't be quite as detailed as this, but I can just do a quick I think, Bayern Munich are going to win the German league. I think Juventus are going to win the Serie A, that sort of thing. And also, who do I think is going to win, the League Cup, FA Cup, Champions League, etc. Let me know if you want a video like that. I'm sure I can make that for you. Let me know what your predictions are. Who do you think is going to win most importantly? Who do you think is going to get relegated? Eat, yeet, skeet, delete. Have a lovely day. Bye, guys.